Motion?
Move it.
Call for the vote.
Motion received, 5 yes votes.
Okay, we have no public hearings, no items for consideration, no matters. Well, we could have some matters. Anybody want to say anything about the agency? I would like to just point out that Mr. Jones talked about tonight, about under homeowners, that Mr. Owens, not Mr. Jones. Mr. Owens, and he talked about food banks and things like that, people having to go to food banks and everything else. I don't think it's a great idea that people have to go to food banks, but when I was a little boy, they used to have a farm out in the edges of the Los Angeles County limits, and when you broke down, when there was nowhere else to go, nowhere else to do, there was no welfare, there was no food banks. They sent you to the county farm. In fact, it was so bad at the county farm that they split up families. All the husbands and fathers had to live in one area, the women in another area. And that's where and there was no way out. I mean, there was no educational systems to change your style of life. I mean, you went to the county farm, you went there forever. I remember when I was a little boy that we used to, the church would go out there and throw a feed for a group of them every once in a while. I remember some old lady, they asked her if she would say the blessing on the food. And she stood up, and I remembered this my whole life. She said, "Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for all that I have. It isn't much. My husband run off. The kids are gone. It's over with for me. But I do have 2 teeth, and I am extremely thankful that they meet." I mean, to have nothing in life but to have 2 teeth that come together so you can chew your food. I think that even though we're in a depression and a recession, and things are bad for a lot of people, we're still a lot better off than we seen a couple of generations ago. There's people on this council, we've experienced all kinds of problems ourselves. One of us has had a son that lost his house. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on, and we're just as wide awake to what's going on as anybody else. We're not some kind of an elite group that doesn't have a clue what's going on. They keep jumping on planning tonight about me telling somebody they did bad planning. Planning is something you need to do in life. You need to plan for the future. And all of us don't do it well. I'm 71 years old. I get up every morning at 5 o'clock, get dressed, and go to work. Not the greatest planning on my part, maybe. And so planning is an important thing. I just think no matter how bad it is, we're better off than 99% of the people in the world. So.
Chair, may I make a comment?
What?
May I make a comment?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to address Mr. Owens' question regarding why we're getting 20-something million dollars and we're owing debt of 127 millions in the agency, and each year we're getting about 13 millions from the hotels. I'm going to give a very similar example. Some of us have a house, and we have equity on it. But the amount of equity we have is nothing compared to what we owe the bank. But that doesn't mean we're under if we have equity. And these debts that we in are for the properties that we own. And if we ever needed to, we can sell those property and wouldn't be in those debts and still have the equity from those properties. So if we were ever to sell those properties, we would have a surplus, not a debt. So it's very much like a house. Yes, it is a debt, but we do own properties with that debt. That's it.
Okay, at this time, we will adjourn. The next regular meeting will be October 13th, 2009 at 5:30 p.m.